Hi, my name is Drew Contreras, and I'm going to be talking about the question today, are we in the presence of innovation? Well, innovators like Theranos, the company I'll be talking about today, all began with Emily Holmes and her journey with biomedical engineering of devices. And she thought up this crazy idea of, getting blood tests done in minimally invasive ways by just getting a drop of blood from your thumb. So right away we can already assume that something like this is innovation. But if we take a closer look, as we will today, there's a lot of communication failure on her part, on all the employees involved with Theranos, and the whole class. We've been just dissecting our company, and the company I kept investigating was Theranos, and we'll also see today how it influenced COVID-19 and the pandemic 100%, and they're completely correlated, and in fact her trial was at the height of the pandemic. So moving from the beginning, we see Emily Holmes in 2003, a young Stanford alum, and she decided to go for the big guns and shoot a pitch to investors on a device she patented multiple times, and she won. She convinced many people through non-apprehensive techniques and just quite frankly not being shy, being very confident in fact in her research, and she began caught up in a lie. You begin one thing and you say it's 100%, 95% accurate. Well, your findings are going to come out. They're going to show up some way or another. And the saying "fake it till you make it" was true in this case. She really wanted to fake it until she made it, and she made it big. Her company became a decacorn on the Fortune 500, recognized by other $13 billion companies, which a decacorn is any company over $1 billion, which is money that you can't even count. It's incredible. And she reached 13 billion in 2014. You continue to look at the patenting history of her device, and frankly all it is commercial rights. You just want to look into a patent to conserve your idea, to make sure your securities are met, and that her device wouldn't get stolen from any other innovator out there, which she considered herself as an innovator. I mean, you take a 1.29 millimeter tube and you inject it with basically instead of a 9 vial blood draw, you get a tiny drop of blood. Which is really cool, but it was in fact 60% accurate, which could have been communicated, and this is where we begin our idea of communicational crisis management, and how can you really just take over communication and not use it to your advantage, but just communicate correctly. I believe some people who are very enthusiastic and non-apprehensive can take over and just manipulate a room, and we see she did that completely through the history of Theranos, and at its core they were trying to help. It was minimally invasive blood work that would be done at a really less cost. So it would help out so many people. Children would no longer feel anxious to get blood drawn because it's just prick on the thumb. Anybody who has fear of needles, that could benefit from that. Theranos. And the device goes on and on. There's reasons for it, and she could have communicated that it's not completely accurate yet, but it had to keep going. She had to wait until someone whistle blew, until findings began to be found, and and we see her trial in the height of the pandemic. And all this time we were wondering, hey, like, what does like companies or organizations like FDA have to say about regulations and oversight? And this is how the Theranos fraud thwarted the FDA's organizational oversight on LDTs, laboratory developed tests. Laboratory developed tests are just tests within a laboratory that get developed there, and not much oversight happens at some places like these. And Theranos, well, no oversight. They somehow managed to get the investors without disclosing any information. So we see that the FDA's oversight really lacked in that regard from 2003 to about 2017, at least with the company Theranos. So it began to be completely for Congress. And Congress has to like really decide whether or not they want these LDTs to be completely regulated and have monthly checks and have them published and peer reviewed before, saturating the market. Whereas during COVID-19, at the height of the pandemic, other countries had 60 COVID-19 tests. Here in the United States, we had 6 in the market due to major oversight. And what caused all this oversight? Well, Theranos. But we wonder, okay, well, this is good communication now. Like, we're not trying to find loopholes, or we're not trying to, cover up any misguided information. We just need COVID tests. Right? So the FDA does kind of like a loophole too. And so they managed to get LDTs by August, which is awesome. But oversight is good. Like having peer review, that's amazing. Right? All the peer review that needs to happen is just being published and making sure other scholarly authors or publishers of other innovations are looking at these things. Make sure that it's getting scrutinized by, eyes that can see and can criticize. So it's just got to go through a process, and Emily Holmes definitely could have done better with that instead of going for all these patents, because one would suffice. Going for a peer review, and that way when she goes to the investors, she can say, okay, it was 60% accurate, but we're working on it, and 60% is still a pretty good success rate, sometimes 85%. So it had a range, 65 to 85%. We're not all the way there yet. We were working on the matter, and we're here to fix it, we're here to learn, but we want to offer this as a substitute and a potential secondary feedback diagnostic test. Well, in looking at it now in retrospect, Emily Holmes has done quite a lot of damage due to her lack of communication. And her communication completely mattered to women, and investors are going to have, it's pretty sad, but now they're putting a stigma on people who maybe aren't integral people, or are fighting to show that, hey, like, this is actually true, like, we are not, the aberration that Theranos was. Well, and in conclusion, this company Theranos could have done quite many different things with their time, and they could have influenced innovation for the better. Instead, they decided to defraud investors, and the medical world suffered. So you can choose which route you would like to go, and this is completely a crisis, and it can be restored. The crisis can be restored. You don't have to sit in it for over a decade like Theranos did. And this company, all companies can learn from this mistake, and we can all become better communicators in a crisis. Thank you very much. My name is Drew Contreras, and it's been a great time learning about communications in the organization. Thank you, Dr. Moodian. Thank you for everything you've done, and I really appreciated this class. All right, till next class. Bye.